All right, so appreciate that I'm freezing for this test. This is going to be a continuation on the comparison between the Sony A6400 and the Galaxy Note 10 Plus as far as a video quality goes. So this is all the way zoomed out on both. I have an 18mm lens on the Sony, and I'm not sure what the zoom equivalent is on the Galaxy phone, but this is what it looks like. And you could probably already tell that the Samsung is a lot choppier with the movement, and that's because the sensors on phones are extremely sensitive to light, because most people want to be able to take pictures in low light with a phone, which makes total sense. But when it comes to filming like this, you need to have a certain shutter speed and a certain exposure level. So in order to get that exposure level in blinding sunlight that I'm experiencing right now, the shutter speed is at 1/6000th of a second for 24 frames per second, which I guess is fine. It's just every movement is perfectly frozen. I bet you if I take like a screenshot of me doing this, I bet you on the phone it'll look frozen, and on the camera it won't. But still, overall image quality at this zoom level is probably good. So let's zoom in a little bit and see how it looks after that. All right, so now we're zoomed out to 50mm on the Sony lens and just zoomed in to match it kind of closely on the phone. And I bet you could tell that there's a big difference in just how it focuses on my face and how the clarity of the image. Also on the Sony footage, the background more than likely is gonna be a little bit more out of focus, even with a really closed down aperture because of how bright it is outside, and I didn't use an ND filter for this comparison. On the Samsung, I bet you it's all kind of flat. That's one thing I've noticed a lot between cameras and phones, is that depth of field, you always lose it in a phone. There is ways around it. You can edit it in post, and I know that Samsung has the live focus for video, which is also something that kind of gives that depth of field artificially, but it's never quite the same as it is on a camera. If I zoom any further than this, you'll definitely be able to tell the difference. So let's actually try that real quick. All right, so now I've stepped further back. Might be a little difficult to hear me, but the Sony zoomed out to 135mm and the Samsung is zoomed out to 9.3 times. I probably don't even have to explain the differences between the two images you're seeing. You'll probably be able to tell which one is from which. Definitely something you'll notice with digital zoom. It looks like, just when I quickly touched it to zoom in, there's a bit of screen shake on the Samsung, which is odd because they're mounted on the same tripod, and the Sony is not having that same problem. Probably just because the phone is much smaller than the Sony, so it's easier to get moved around by the wind. What is up? It is the next day after the video you saw of me freezing outside. I did notice something here while I was editing the video that I figured would be worth sharing. In the first part of this video that you've seen so far, it was just the Sony that I'm shooting on right now. Color graded, it's not color graded, I just adjust the contrast for more or less, because I shoot it in HLG2, which if you know anything about filming, it's like a flat profile, so you need to take down the highlights and bring up the darks to get it to look all right. But other than that, it's basically just straight out of the camera. I didn't apply any color grading. With the Samsung, I noticed that if you just do the same sort of thing, bring up the shadows and down the highlights, kind of looks really good. So let's jump into DaVinci right now and I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so here we are in DaVinci. So this right here is my phone's footage that you're seeing. This right here, this is my camera footage you're seeing. So you notice that it's not as washed out in the whites, and the darks have more detail. But then when you go to the Samsung footage, the darks are really dark, extra dark, especially right here in the shadows, and then the whites are really blown out looking. So if we just basically go into the color grade thing here, and we just take the shadows, bring them up a little bit. I don't know, right about there maybe. And then we go to the highlights, take them down. There was some clipping, as you can see in the graphs over here, there's like a flat line. That's a little bit of clipping from the recording, but that's not too big a deal. It doesn't look too bad.
That right there already looks a lot better, especially full screen. You can kind of see that like the white has a lot more detail than you would think, and so do the darks. Obviously, it's not as sharp around my stupid face that I have in this screenshot, of course. Let's just go back to what it was. So that's what we were at before. As you can tell, the white doesn't really have any detail. It's just kind of pure white everywhere. And then this, especially this side of the jacket, is very, very dark, just pure black. Whereas, you know, this has a little bit of detail. So again, I'll just bring down the whites, or the highlights anyway. And then with the darks, just bring them up a little bit. Not too much. Otherwise it gets a little washed out. But if you just go right about there, maybe bring down the mid-tones just a tiny bit. And then we have this, whereas you can see right here, it's starting to actually, you know, see some of the jacket. You can kind of see the details in the wrinkles. Like this is obviously a dark shadow. The whites, you can see the snow, the different footprints in the snow, the tire tracks from my truck, and all that stuff. So you can actually make phone footage look pretty good. See, even on the camera, this is pretty dark, but you have more detail in the shadows. Even the snow on this could probably come down a little bit, but there's still detail even though it's really bright, versus this where, again, like I said, you can see that the darks just have not a lot of detail and the snow is really blown out. All right, so that might have been a little bit dragged out, but for anyone who's looking to, you know, start making content like I was recently, because this is like my third video, you could tell that like cell phones, they work. It's fine. You could totally work with it, especially if you can get your hands on, I mean, DaVinci is free. Probably like 85% of DaVinci is free, and that's what I'm using right now. You can do all this. So I mean, if you get your phone footage and it's a little too bright in the highlights, just take it down a little bit, and I bet you it'll look pretty good. I'm actually surprised at how good it could look just from adjusting that clip. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. I'm gonna be posting more, hopefully. The more, if I can think of more stuff to do, and now that the weather's starting to break and it's starting to get nicer out, I'll have more projects to film. So stay tuned, subscribe if you like what you saw, like the video if you like what you saw, and have a good rest of your week. See you later.